Mother Bear refused to leave the coffin of this human baby. When they opened the coffin, they were shocked to find out, "Let us know where you're watching from." The morning air hung heavy with mist as Savannah Reed trudged through the dense forest, her boots sinking into the soft earth with each step. The locals had warned her about venturing too deep into these woods, especially after the strange occurrences that had been happening lately. But Savannah wasn't one to heed warnings. As the town's newest resident wildlife photographer, she was determined to capture the perfect shot. Her camera bounced against her chest as she moved, the familiar weight a comfort amid the eerie silence of the forest. No birds sang, no squirrels scurried up trees. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Savannah paused, brushing a strand of auburn hair from her face as she listened. Something wasn't right. That's when she heard it. A melody so faint she thought she might have imagined it. A lullaby, sweet and haunting, drifting through the trees like morning fog. Goosebumps prickled her skin despite the warm spring air. The song seemed to call to her, drawing her forward, deeper into the woods than she had ever ventured before. "Hello," Savannah called out, her voice sounding small against the towering trees. "Is someone there?" No answer came, only the continued notes of the lullaby, growing slightly louder as she followed its source. Her heart pounded in her chest, a mixture of fear and curiosity propelling her forward. The dense undergrowth gave way to a small clearing, and Savannah gasped, her camera forgotten as she took in the sight before her. In the center of the clearing stood a weathered stone well, its edges crumbling with age. Moss covered most of its surface, and wild flowers grew around its base, their colors vibrant against the gray stone. But it wasn't the well that caught Savannah's attention. It was the figure sitting on its edge. A small boy, no older than 6, with dark hair and pale skin, sat humming the lullaby. He wore clothes that seemed oddly old-fashioned. A white shirt with suspenders and short pants that looked like they belonged to another era entirely. His feet dangled above the ground, swinging back and forth as he hummed. Savannah's breath caught in her throat. The boy looked so real, and yet something about him seemed transparent, as if she could see the trees behind him if she looked hard enough. She blinked, convinced her eyes were playing tricks on her, but the image remained the same. "Hello there," she said softly, approaching slowly so as not to frighten him. "Are you lost?" The boy stopped humming and looked up, his eyes meeting hers. They were the deepest blue Savannah had ever seen, like pools of midnight water. He didn't seem surprised to see her, nor did he show any fear. "I'm waiting," he said simply, his voice as clear as a bell despite the strange echo that seemed to follow his words. "Waiting for what?" Savannah asked, moving closer until she stood just a few feet away from the well. The boy's face brightened with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "For my mother. She told me to wait right here and not to move until she comes back." His small fingers traced patterns in the moss. "She's been gone a very long time." Something cold settled in Savannah's stomach. The boy's clothes, his manner of speaking, the well that looked like it hadn't been used in decades. Goosebumps rose on her arms again, but she pushed away the unsettling thoughts. This was just a lost child who needed help. "What's your name?" she asked, kneeling down to be at eye level with him. "Jacob," he replied, continuing to swing his legs. "Jacob Bennett. What's yours?" "Savannah," she said, offering him a smile. "Savannah Reed. I'm new to town. Do you live nearby, Jacob?" The boy nodded, pointing past the clearing toward the mountains in the distance. "In the White House, with the blue door. Mother says it's the prettiest house in all of Silver Creek." Savannah's heart skipped a beat. Silver Creek was what this town had been called over 80 years ago, before a flood had destroyed much of the original settlement, and it had been rebuilt and renamed to Riverdale. She'd learned this during her research about the area before moving here. "Jacob," she said carefully, "how long have you been waiting here?" The boy's face scrunched up in concentration. "Since morning. The sun was just coming up when Mother left." He looked up at the sky, confusion crossing his features as he noticed the sun was now high overhead. "She said she would be right back." Savannah swallowed hard, her mind racing. This couldn't be happening. She wasn't one to believe in ghosts or spirits, but standing here, looking at this boy who spoke of a town that no longer existed, wearing clothes from another time, she couldn't deny the chill that ran down her spine. "What was that song you were humming?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Jacob's face lit up. "Mother's lullaby. She sings it to me every night before bed." He began to hum again, the haunting melody filling the clearing. "She promised to sing it tonight too when she comes back." Tears pricked at Savannah's eyes, though she wasn't sure why. Something about this boy, his innocent faith that his mother would return, touched her deeply. She had the overwhelming urge to gather him in her arms, to comfort him. But something told her that might not be possible. "Jacob," she said gently, "I think we should try to find your mother. Maybe she got lost on her way back." The boy shook his head firmly. "I can't leave. I promised to stay right here." His blue eyes clouded with worry. "If I leave, how will she find me?" "She told me to stay, so I'm staying." Before Savannah could respond, a twig snapped behind her. She whirled around to see a man standing at the edge of the clearing, his tall frame silhouetted against the trees. He wore a park ranger's uniform, his expression a mixture of concern and relief as he spotted Savannah. "Miss Reed," he called out, stepping into the clearing. "The folks at your rental cabin were worried when you didn't come back. These woods can be tricky if you don't know them well." Savannah stood quickly, relief washing over her at the sight of another person. "I'm fine, just got a bit turned around." She gestured toward the well. "I was just talking to—" She turned back, the words dying on her lips. The stone well stood alone in the clearing. Jacob was gone. The spot where he had been sitting just moments before was empty, with no sign that anyone had been there at all. "Talking to who?" the ranger asked, coming to stand beside her. His name badge read Logan Carter. Savannah blinked, scanning the clearing. There was a boy here, sitting on the well. His name was Jacob. "Did you see where he went?" Logan's expression changed, a shadow passing over his features. "Jacob? Jacob Bennett?" Savannah's heart raced. "Yes, that's what he said. Do you know him?" The ranger's eyes moved to the well, then back to Savannah. "Miss Reed, there hasn't been a Jacob Bennett in this town for over 70 years. He hesitated, as if deciding whether to continue. "According to local history, a boy by that name went missing in 1953. His mother left him waiting by the old well while she went to get water from the river. There was a flash flood. She never made it back." Savannah felt the blood drain from her face. "That's impossible. I was just talking to him. He was sitting right there, humming a lullaby." Logan nodded slowly. "The forgotten lullaby. That's what folks around here call it. Some say they hear it in these woods, especially on days when the mist hangs low, like today." He looked at her with sympathy. "Many people have claimed to see him over the years, always waiting by the well, always humming that same tune." Savannah's legs felt weak beneath her. She wasn't one to believe in such things, and yet he said he was waiting for his mother to come back. "And he always will be," Logan said softly. Some stories don't have happy endings, Miss Reed. As if on cue, the faint notes of a lullaby drifted through the clearing once more, though the well remained empty. The melody wrapped around them like a gentle embrace, filled with longing and hope and endless patience. In that moment, standing in the misty clearing with the haunting lullaby floating around her, Savannah knew one thing for certain. She would never forget the boy with the midnight blue eyes who was still waiting, after all these years, for his mother to return. "We should head back," Logan said gently, placing a hand on Savannah's shoulder. "The fog's getting thicker, and these woods can be dangerous after dark." Savannah nodded numbly, but her eyes remained fixed on the empty well. Something tugged at her heart, a feeling she couldn't explain. "What happened to him? I mean, after—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Logan's expression grew solemn. "The town searched for weeks. They found his mother's body downstream, but Jacob was never found." He adjusted his ranger hat. "The old-timers say he's still waiting, not knowing what happened, not understanding that his mother is never coming back." Savannah felt tears welling in her eyes. "That's heartbreaking." "It is," Logan agreed, guiding her back toward the path. "But it's just a local legend. Most folks don't put much stock in ghost stories these days." But as they walked away, Savannah couldn't shake the feeling that what she had experienced was far more than just a legend. The boy had seemed so real, so solid, until he wasn't. The lullaby continued to play in her mind, a gentle, haunting reminder of a promise never fulfilled. The trek back to Savannah's cabin was silent, each lost in their own thoughts. By the time they arrived, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Logan hesitated at the door. "Will you be all right, Miss Reed? That kind of experience can be unsettling." Savannah forced a smile. "I'll be fine. Thank you for coming to find me." "Just doing my job." He tipped his hat, then paused. "If you don't mind me asking, what brought you to our little town anyway? Most tourists prefer the beaches or the big national parks." "I'm working on a photography book," Savannah explained, grateful for the change of subject. "Hidden places, forgotten corners of America. I heard this area had some unique landscapes." Logan nodded. "Well, you certainly found something unique today." He glanced toward the direction of the forest. "Just be careful. Some places have more history than others." After Logan left, Savannah sat on her porch, watching the last light fade from the sky. She couldn't stop thinking about Jacob, about his innocent face and the patience with which he waited for a mother who would never return. She opened her camera, scrolling through the photos she had taken earlier in the day, before her encounter at the well. Her heart nearly stopped. There, in the background of a landscape shot of the forest path, was a blurry figure. A small boy in old-fashioned clothes, half hidden behind a tree. Savannah zoomed in, her hands trembling. It was impossible. She hadn't seen anyone when she took this photo. And yet there he was, Jacob Bennett, watching her from a distance. Sleep eluded Savannah that night. She tossed and turned, the lullaby playing over and over in her mind. When she finally did drift off, her dreams were filled with images of the stone well, of Jacob sitting patiently, of floodwaters rising, of a mother desperately trying to return to her child. She woke with the first light of dawn, her decision already made. She had to go back. She had to understand. The morning was crisp and clear, no trace of yesterday's mist. Savannah packed her camera, a notebook, and a small lunch before heading out. This time, she paid careful attention to the path, marking her way so she wouldn't get lost. It took nearly 2 hours of searching before she found the clearing again. The well looked different in the bright sunlight. Older, more decrepit, somehow less magical. There was no sign of Jacob, no sound of his lullaby. Disappointment washed over Savannah as she approached the stone structure. "Jacob," she called softly, "are you here?" "It's me, Savannah." Only silence answered her. She sighed, setting her backpack down on the edge of the well where the boy had been sitting. Maybe Logan was right. Maybe her mind had been playing tricks on her, influenced by local legends and the eerie atmosphere of the foggy forest. As she sat there, her fingers absently traced the edge of the stone. Something sharp pricked her finger, and she pulled back with a small gasp. A rusted metal object was wedged between two stones. Curious, Savannah worked it free, brushing away decades of dirt and grime. It was a locket, tarnished with age but still intact. With trembling fingers, she pressed the small clasp and it sprang open. Inside was a faded photograph of a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. On the other side, a small inscription: "To my darling Jacob, with all my love, Mother." Savannah's breath caught in her throat. This was real. Tangible proof that Jacob Bennett had existed, had sat by this well, had waited for his mother to return. She closed the locket gently, holding it in her palm, feeling its weight, the weight of a story unfinished, a promise unfulfilled. "You found it." The voice made Savannah jump. Jacob stood on the other side of the well, his blue eyes fixed on the locket in her hand. Today, in the bright sunlight, the transparency of his form was more evident, the trees behind him visible through his slight figure. "Jacob," Savannah whispered, her heart racing, "you're here." "I'm always here," he said simply, his eyes never leaving the locket. "Mother gave that to me on my birthday. I was keeping it safe until she came back." Savannah swallowed hard. "It's beautiful, Jacob." The boy nodded, his expression serious. "Can I have it back now? Mother will be sad if I lose it." The request broke Savannah's heart. How could she explain to this child that his mother was gone, that he had been waiting for over 70 years for someone who would never return, that both of them were long dead in the eyes of the world? "Jacob," she said gently, "has anyone else ever talked to you?" "Besides me." The boy thought for a moment, then nodded. "A few people. They come and go. Most can't see me, though." His face brightened. "There was a nice lady with yellow hair who came sometimes. She brought me candy." "When was this?" Savannah asked, curious. Jacob shrugged. "Before the big water came. The yellow-haired lady stopped coming after that." The flood that had claimed his mother, Savannah realized. This boy had no concept of how much time had passed. To him it was still 1953, and he was still just waiting for his mother to return from her errand. "Jacob, do you remember what happened the day your mother left?" Savannah asked carefully. The boy's face clouded. "It was raining. Not when she left, but after. It rained a lot." He kicked at a pebble near his foot, though Savannah noticed it didn't move. "I heard loud noises from the river. People were shouting." "Were you scared?" Jacob nodded. "A little. But Mother told me to stay by the well, so I did. She said it was the safest place." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I'm still being good. I'm still waiting." Tears filled Savannah's eyes. This child's unwavering obedience, his trust in his mother's return, was both beautiful and devastating. He had no idea that the flood had taken her, that she had likely died trying to get back to him. All he knew was that he had been told to wait, and so he did, year after year, decade after decade. "Jacob," Savannah said, her voice breaking, "I need to tell you something important." Before she could continue, the sound of footsteps made her turn. Logan was approaching through the trees, his expression a mixture of concern and annoyance. "Miss Reed," he called, "I thought we agreed you wouldn't come back here alone." Savannah glanced back at Jacob, but the boy was gone again, vanished as suddenly as he had appeared. The locket felt heavy in her hand. "I had to come back," she said as Logan reached her. "I needed to see him again." Logan sighed, rubbing his forehead. "So you did see him again?" "Jacob?" Savannah nodded, holding out the locket. "And I found this. It was wedged in the stones of the well. It belonged to him. There's an inscription from his mother." Logan took the locket, examining it with surprise. "This is unexpected." He looked up at Savannah. "Most people who claim to see Jacob don't find physical evidence." "You don't seem as skeptical as you were yesterday," Savannah observed. A shadow crossed Logan's face. "Let's just say I've lived in these parts my whole life. The Bennett story isn't the only tragedy these woods have witnessed." He handed the locket back to Savannah. "What did he say to you today?" Savannah recounted her conversation with Jacob, watching as Logan's expression grew more troubled with each word. "You can't tell him," Logan said when she finished. "About his mother, I mean." "Why not?" Savannah asked. "Doesn't he deserve to know the truth? Maybe then he could move on, find peace." Logan shook his head. "It's been tried before. About 30 years ago, a local historian became obsessed with the Jacob Bennett case. She researched everything, found newspaper clippings, death certificates, even interviewed elderly residents who remembered the flood." He looked into the distance. "She came out here and tried to tell him what had happened. And the forest changed that day. The historian said the sky darkened, the wind rose, and Jacob—" Logan hesitated. "She said his eyes turned black, and he screamed with a voice that wasn't his own. She barely made it out of the woods alive." Savannah felt a chill run down her spine. "You're saying Jacob doesn't want to know?" "I'm saying there might be more to this than a boy waiting for his mother." Logan's voice was grave. "Some locals believe that whatever keeps Jacob here isn't Jacob himself anymore, that something else has taken hold of his spirit, something that feeds on his endless waiting, his perpetual hope." "That's horrible," Savannah whispered. "It's just a theory," Logan said, though his tone suggested he believed it might be true. "All I know is that people who try to free Jacob tend to regret it. The kinder ones just bring him small gifts, talk to him for a while, then leave him be." Savannah looked down at the locket in her hand. "So, we just let him wait forever?" "That's cruel." "Maybe," Logan admitted, "but maybe there's a reason some stories don't find their ending." He gestured toward the path. "Come on, I'll walk you back." Savannah hesitated, looking back at the well. The weight of Jacob's story, of his unending vigil, pressed on her heart. But she followed Logan, slipping the locket into her pocket. That night, Savannah couldn't sleep again. The lullaby played in her dreams, but now it sounded different, darker, almost desperate. She saw Jacob's face, his innocent blue eyes, but behind them lurked something else, something ancient and hungry. She woke gasping, covered in sweat. The locket sat on her bedside table, gleaming in the moonlight. As Savannah stared at it, a terrible realization dawned on her. What if the locket was what bound Jacob to this world? What if this physical connection to his mother, this token of her promise to return, was what kept him waiting all these years? And if that was true, what would happen if the locket was returned to its rightful owner? The thought made Savannah's stomach turn. To feed on a child's hope for 70 years, to keep him trapped in an endless moment of waiting. It was monstrous beyond comprehension. "How do we perform this unmaking ritual?" Logan asked, bringing the conversation back to their purpose. Michael closed his eyes for a moment, as if accessing ancient memories. "The ritual must be performed at a waiting place, preferably one currently occupied by a waiter. Each participant must embody one of the 5 countering elements, not just in word, but in spirit." "How do we do that?" Savannah asked. "Movement is represented by someone who refuses to remain static, who embraces change and forward momentum," Michael explained. "Acceptance is embodied by one who has faced loss without denial. Release requires someone who has learned to let go of what cannot be changed. Completion is represented by one who has brought closure to something significant in their life. And rebirth," he paused, looking directly at Savannah, "must be embodied by someone who has died to their old self and emerged anew." The cavern fell silent as they each contemplated these requirements. "I can embody acceptance," Michael said finally. "I have buried my wife, my brother, and 2 of my children. I have learned to accept the inevitability of loss." "I represent release," Lily offered quietly. "I spent decades trying to find Jacob, to understand what happened to him. But eventually, I had to release that obsession, to live my own life while still honoring his memory." Logan nodded. "I've brought completion to many lost hikers and campers over the years, guiding them safely home when they might otherwise have become lost forever." All eyes turned to Savannah. "What about me?" she asked. "And this Ethan person?" "That remains to be seen," Michael said. "But I suspect one of you will embody movement and the other rebirth. We will know more when we meet Ethan tomorrow." Savannah's hand went to the locket again, feeling its unnatural warmth against her skin. "And what about this? Do we use it in the ritual?" "The locket is both danger and opportunity," Michael replied. "It connects you to the devourer, yes, but it also provides a direct link we can use against it. In the ritual, it will serve as the focus, the bridge between worlds." "Won't that put Savannah at risk?" Logan asked, concern evident in his voice. Michael didn't sugarcoat his answer. "Yes, significant risk. The devourer will fight back. It will use every tool at its disposal to stop us. It will reach into her mind, find her own waiting, and try to turn her into what Jacob was." A chill ran down Savannah's spine. "What happens if it succeeds?" "Then you join the waiters," Michael said simply, "forever caught in a moment of hope that never finds fulfillment." The gravity of what they were attempting settled over the group. This wasn't just about helping trapped spirits or solving a local mystery. They were challenging an ancient entity that had been feeding on human hope for millennia. "We should rest," Lily suggested, noting the late afternoon light filtering through cracks in the cave ceiling. "Tomorrow will be a long day." They made their way back through the cave system and into the forest, where evening was beginning to descend. The hike back was largely silent, each lost in contemplation of what they had learned and the task that lay ahead. As they neared the trail that would take them back to the inhabited part of the forest, Michael paused. "I will meet you at Savannah's cabin at dawn," he said. "Be prepared for a difficult journey. Ethan's home is not easy to reach, and he does not welcome visitors." With that, he turned and disappeared into the trees with surprising speed for a man of his age, leaving the others to make their way back alone. That night, Savannah sat on her cabin porch, watching the stars emerge one by one above the forest canopy. The locket hung heavy around her neck, a constant reminder of what lurked in the darkness beyond. She thought about Jacob, about the other waiters trapped throughout the forest, souls caught in an endless moment of hope turned to torment. And she thought about her father, 5 years had passed since Robert Reed had disappeared in the Amazon rainforest. An experienced explorer and photographer, he had ventured into an unmapped region in search of a lost indigenous tribe, promising to return within a month. When 3 months passed with no word, search parties were sent. They found his camp abandoned, his equipment scattered, but no sign of the man himself. Most assumed he was dead, taken by the jungle or its predators. But Savannah had never accepted that. Somewhere in her heart remained a small, stubborn flame of hope, the belief that one day her father would walk through the door with stories of an amazing adventure and apologies for making her worry. Was that the waiting the devourer had sensed in her? The reason it had been able to mark her through the locket? The thought was troubling enough that Savannah almost missed the figure emerging from the tree line at the edge of her property. She tensed, reaching for her phone, but relaxed when she recognized Logan's familiar silhouette. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked as he approached the porch. "Too much on my mind," Savannah admitted, making room for him on the step beside her. Logan sat, his gaze fixed on the dark mass of trees before them. "I wanted to check on you. The locket. Has it given you any trouble since we left the cave?" Savannah shook her head. "It's quiet, warm, but not burning like before." "That's good," Logan nodded. "But don't let your guard down. The devourer is patient. It's in its nature to wait for the perfect moment to strike." They sat in companionable silence for a while, the sounds of the night forest a gentle backdrop to their thoughts. "Can I ask you something?" Savannah finally said. "Why do you do this? Guard the forest, protect people from the waiting places, research ancient entities. It seems like a heavy burden for one person." Logan was quiet for so long that Savannah thought he might not answer. When he did, his voice was soft, reflective. "My grandfather was the first in our family to understand what lived in these woods," he began. "He was part of the search party for Jacob Bennett. When they couldn't find the boy, most people eventually moved on, accepted the tragedy, but my grandfather kept searching. He found one of the waiting places?" Logan nodded. "A clearing, much like the one where you met Jacob. There was a little girl there, standing alone. She'd been missing for nearly 40 years by that point, but she looked exactly the same as the day she disappeared. My grandfather tried to approach her, to help her, but something stopped him, an instinct, a warning. He watched from a distance instead." "What happened?" Savannah asked. "The girl stood in that clearing for 3 days without moving, just waiting. On the 4th day, a hiker came through, a young woman who had recently lost her daughter to illness. When she saw the little girl, she ran to her, overcome with emotion." Logan's voice grew tight. "My grandfather tried to stop her, but he was too far away. The moment the woman reached the girl, they both changed. The girl vanished, and the woman took her place, standing perfectly still, waiting. She became a waiter," Savannah whispered. "Yes," Logan confirmed, "and my grandfather witnessed the whole thing. He spent the rest of his life researching what he had seen, mapping the waiting places, warning people away. My father continued his work, and now I do the same." "That's quite a family legacy," Savannah observed. Logan smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "It's not what I planned for my life. I wanted to be a biologist, study the natural world. But when you know something like this exists, when you've seen what it can do to people—" He trailed off. How could I walk away? Savannah understood completely. She too was now bound to this knowledge, this responsibility. Once you had seen a ghost boy waiting by a crumbling well, once you had felt an ancient entity reaching into your mind, there was no going back to normal life. "We're going to help them," she said with determination. "All of them. Jacob was just the beginning." Logan turned to look at her, his expression both admiring and concerned. "It won't be easy, and it will be dangerous, especially for you. The devourer has marked you now. It won't let you go without a fight." Savannah touched the locket through her shirt. "Let it bite. I'm ready." But even as she spoke the words, doubt crept into her mind. Was she truly ready to face an entity that had existed for thousands of years? To risk becoming a waiter herself, trapped in an eternal moment of hopeless hope? Before she could dwell on these fears, a sound drew her attention. Soft at first, then growing louder. The lullaby, Jacob's lullaby, drifting through the night air. "Do you hear that?" she asked, standing abruptly. Logan was on his feet in an instant, his hand moving to his belt where Savannah now noticed he carried not just a utility knife, but what looked like a small pouch similar to the one holding her locket. "I hear it," he confirmed, his voice tense. "It's coming from the forest." The melody was clear now, hauntingly beautiful in the quiet night. But there was something different about it, a plaintive quality that tugged at Savannah's heart. "It's sad," she murmured. "Not like before. It sounds mournful." Before Logan could stop her, Savannah was moving toward the tree line, drawn by an impulse she couldn't explain. The locket grew warmer against her skin, but not with the burning heat of the entity's anger. This was different. A gentle warmth, almost comforting. "Savannah, wait," Logan called, hurrying after her. "It could be a trap." But Savannah didn't stop. She followed the lullaby into the trees, moving with a surety that belied her unfamiliarity with the forest. The path seemed to open before her, the moonlight guiding her steps between roots and branches. After several minutes, she emerged into a small clearing. Not the one where she had met Jacob, but a similar space, bathed in silver moonlight. In its center stood a young woman in a white dress, her dark hair flowing down her back. She was singing the lullaby, her voice ethereal in the night air. Savannah stopped at the edge of the clearing, Logan coming to a halt beside her. "Who is she?" Savannah whispered. Logan's face had gone pale. "Jessica Brooks," he replied, his voice hushed with disbelief. "She disappeared in these woods 30 years ago. She was pregnant, came here to think about whether to keep the baby. Her family searched for weeks but never found her." The young woman, Jessica, turned at the sound of their voices. Her face was beautiful, serene, but her eyes held a deep sadness. "You helped him," she said, her voice echoing strangely in the clearing. "You helped the boy move on." "Jacob," Savannah confirmed, taking a careful step forward. "Yes, we helped him find peace." Jessica smiled, though tears glistened in her eyes. "I felt it. We all did. A shift, a lightning. For the first time in so long, we felt hope, real hope, not the kind that feeds it." "We?" Logan asked. Jessica gestured to the trees around the clearing. "The waiters. We are many, scattered throughout the forest. Some have been waiting for centuries, others for mere decades. But all of us felt it when Jacob moved on." Savannah's heart raced with excitement and trepidation. "Are you here to ask for our help, to move on like Jacob did?" The smile faded from Jessica's face. "I'm here to warn you," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The devourer is angry. It has never lost one of us before. It will do anything to stop you from taking more." "What can it do?" Logan asked, moving to stand beside Savannah. "It is gathering its strength," Jessica replied, "pulling energy from all of us, all the waiters preparing for a confrontation. And it has set its sights on you, Savannah Reed." Savannah touched the locket instinctively. "Because I helped Jacob." "Because you have the potential to help all of us," Jessica said. "The devourer sees in you a thread of waiting, a hope that has persisted beyond reason. But it also sees your strength, your determination to fight. You represent both opportunity and threat. "My father," Savannah said, understanding dawning. "It's using my hope that he's still alive." Jessica nodded. "The devourer knows the deepest hopes of everyone who enters its domain. It has been watching you since you first arrived, sensing your potential as both food and foe." Logan stepped forward. "What can we do to protect ourselves, to prepare for whatever it's planning?" "Trust nothing you see in the forest from now on," Jessica warned. "The devourer can create illusions, show you what you most want to see. It can speak with familiar voices, wear beloved faces." Her form flickered slightly, like a television with poor reception. "Even now, it tries to pull me back, to silence me." "How are you able to warn us?" Savannah asked. "If you're one of the waiters, under its control." "Jacob's freedom created a disturbance," Jessica explained, her image stabilizing. "A crack in the devourer's hold over us. It won't last. Already I can feel it reasserting its control, but I had to try to help you, for all our sakes." "The ritual," Logan said urgently. "The unmaking of patience. Will it work?" Jessica's expression grew distant, as if listening to something they couldn't hear. "It has worked before," she finally said. "Long ago, but the price was high for those who performed it." "What price?" Savannah asked. Jessica's form flickered again, more dramatically this time. When she stabilized, her face was contorted with pain. "I can't hold on much longer," she gasped. "It's pulling me back." "Wait," Savannah cried, stepping fully into the clearing now. "Tell us about the price. What happens to those who perform the ritual?" Jessica looked at her with eyes that were beginning to glow with an unnatural green light. "To unmake waiting," she said, her voice growing distorted, "one must first embrace it completely. You must walk willingly into the state you seek to destroy. You must become—" Her voice cut off as her form dissolved into mist, the lullaby fading with her. The clearing was suddenly silent, empty, but for Savannah and Logan. "Become what?" Savannah whispered. What was she trying to tell us? Logan's face was grim. "I think she was warning us that the ritual requires sacrifice. That to free the waiters we might have to take their place, at least temporarily." The implications of this settled over Savannah like a weight. To free the souls trapped by the devourer, they might have to risk becoming trapped themselves. "We need to tell the others," she said finally. "Michael and Lily should know what we've learned." Logan nodded, but his eyes remained fixed on the spot where Jessica had stood. "There's something else bothering me," he admitted. "Something about this doesn't feel right." "What do you mean?" "Jessica Brooks disappeared 30 years ago," Logan explained. "She's been under the devourer's control all that time. Yet suddenly, because of one waiter finding peace, she's able to break free enough to warn us. It seems convenient." A chill ran down Savannah's spine. "You think it was a trap, an illusion created by the devourer?" "Maybe," Logan said cautiously. "Or maybe the truth wrapped in manipulation. The devourer might have allowed her to contact us, might even have let her share real information, but with a specific purpose. To scare us off," Savannah realized. "To make us think the ritual is too dangerous to attempt." "Exactly," Logan confirmed. "Fear is a powerful deterrent. If we believe trying to help the waiters might trap us in their place, we might decide it's not worth the risk." Savannah thought about this as they made their way back to her cabin. The locket had cooled against her skin, returning to its dormant state. Was that evidence that Jessica's appearance had been orchestrated by the devourer? A way to observe them, to plant seeds of doubt? Or had it truly been a moment of rebellion, a desperate warning from someone who had been trapped for decades? Either way, one thing was clear. They were in a battle with an entity that had survived thousands of years by turning hope into a weapon. It knew the human heart, knew how to manipulate fear and desire. If they were going to succeed in freeing the waiters, they would need to be vigilant against its influence. Back at the cabin, they found Lily asleep on the couch, her research notes spread around her. They decided not to wake her, to wait until morning to share what had happened in the clearing. "You should get some rest," Logan advised as he prepared to leave. "Tomorrow will be challenging." Savannah nodded, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. "Will you be all right getting back to your place in the dark?" Logan smiled. "I've navigated these woods at night more times than I can count. I'll be fine." His expression grew serious. "Be careful, Savannah. Don't take off the locket's protective wrapping, no matter what you hear or feel." After he left, Savannah checked on Lily once more before retreating to her bedroom. She placed the locket, still in its protective pouch, on the nightstand and changed into pajamas. Despite her exhaustion, she knew sleep wouldn't come easily after everything she had learned and experienced. She was right. Hour after hour, she tossed and turned, her mind replaying the day's events, trying to make sense of the strange new world she had stumbled into. When she did finally drift off, her dreams were filled with waiting figures standing motionless in clearings, by wells beside rivers, their eyes slowly turning from human to an eerie, luminous green. In one particularly vivid dream, she stood in a forest clearing, surrounded by waiters. Jacob was there, and Jessica, and dozens of others, some in modern clothing, others in garments from centuries past. They formed a circle around her, their faces expressionless, their eyes fixed on something behind her. Slowly, Savannah turned to see what they were looking at. A figure stood there, shrouded in shadow despite the bright moonlight that illuminated the rest of the clearing. It was roughly human in shape, but taller, thinner, its proportions subtly wrong. "You cannot free them," it said, its voice like stones grinding together. "They are mine, as you will be." The figure began to approach, the shadows that comprised it writhing and shifting. Savannah tried to back away but found herself unable to move. Looking down, she saw roots emerging from the ground, wrapping around her ankles, slowly climbing up her legs. "Wait with us," the waiters chanted in unison, their voices devoid of emotion. "Wait forever." "No!" Savannah tried to shout, but no sound emerged. The shadowy figure was directly before her now, reaching out with a hand that elongated, fingers stretching into impossible tendrils. "Your father waits for you," it whispered, its voice changing, becoming horribly familiar. "He has been waiting so long, Savannah. Won't you wait with him?" The shadowy shape shifted, solidified, becoming the figure of Robert Reed, Savannah's father. He looked exactly as she remembered him. Tall, broad-shouldered, his beard neatly trimmed, his eyes crinkled at the corners from years of laughter and sun exposure. "Savvy," he said, using his old nickname for her. "I've missed you so much." Tears filled Savannah's eyes. Even knowing it was a trick, a manipulation, she couldn't stop the surge of longing that rose within her. "You're not real," she managed to say. "My father is gone." "No, Savvy, I'm not gone," the apparition insisted, its voice perfect, its expressions exactly as she remembered. "I've been lost, trying to find my way back to you, but I'm here now." It held out its arms. "Come wait with me. Just for a little while." The roots had reached her waist now, binding her more firmly to the ground. Part of Savannah wanted to give in, to embrace the figure that looked so much like her father, to wait with him for as long as necessary. What did it matter if it was real or not? She would be with him again in some form. Just as she was about to reach for him, a different voice cut through the dream, a woman's voice, singing softly. The lullaby, but with different words than before. Wait not for those who cannot return. Seek not the paths where shadows burn. Hope not for yesterday's long past. Find strength to live in days that last. The singing grew louder, drowning out the false father's words, his pleas for her to wait with him. The roots began to loosen, retreating back into the earth. The waiter's circle broke apart, their expressions changing from blank stillness to something like yearning as they listened to the song. Savannah woke with a gasp, sitting bolt upright in bed. The room was dark, but a faint glow emanated from the locket on her nightstand, visible even through its protective wrapping. The singing continued, softly but clearly, seeming to come from the locket itself. Cautiously, Savannah reached for it. The pouch was warm, but not burning, the glow pulsing in rhythm with the lullaby. As she touched it, the singing stopped. "Hello?" Savannah whispered. There was no response, but the locket pulsed once more, a gentle warmth spreading through Savannah's fingers. It didn't feel threatening or invasive like before. It felt protective. Confused, but somehow reassured, Savannah returned the locket to the nightstand and lay back down. This time, sleep came quickly, and her dreams were peaceful, free of waiters and shadows and false fathers. Morning arrived with the sound of voices from the main room of the cabin. Savannah dressed quickly and went to investigate, finding Lily, Logan, and Michael seated around her kitchen table, deep in conversation that ceased when she entered. "How did you sleep?" Lily asked, her expression concerned. "Strangely," Savannah admitted. "I had nightmares, but then something helped me. A song, coming from the locket." The three exchanged glances, and Michael leaned forward with interest. "What kind of song?" "The lullaby," Savannah explained, "but with different words warning against waiting for those who can't return." Michael's eyes widened slightly. "That is unexpected. The locket should not be able to act independently of the devourer's influence. Unless it wasn't the devourer singing," Logan suggested. "What if it was Jacob's mother, Elizabeth Bennet? Or another force entirely," Lily added. "Something that opposes the devourer." Michael looked thoughtful. "Legends speak of a counterbalance to the devourer. Where it feeds on eternal waiting, this other force draws strength from acceptance and moving forward. Our ancestors called it the mender of broken paths." "Could this mender be helping us?" Savannah asked hopefully. "Perhaps," Michael said cautiously. "But we should not count on outside assistance. Our path forward remains the same. Find Ethan Marshall and perform the unmaking ritual." "About that," Logan interjected. "Savannah and I had a visitor last night. Jessica Brooks, another waiter." He recounted their experience in the clearing, Jessica's warning, and their suspicions about whether it had been genuine or a manipulation. As he spoke, Savannah retrieved the locket from her bedroom, placing it in the center of the table where everyone could see its faint, pulsing glow. "The devourer would not waste energy on a mere deception," Michael said when Logan had finished. "More likely, it allowed Jessica to speak to you, knowing she would reveal the true cost of the ritual. It hopes to discourage you." "Is it true?" Savannah asked directly. "Do we have to become waiters ourselves to free the others?" Michael was silent for a long moment. "Not precisely," he finally said. "But there is truth in what Jessica told you. The ritual requires each participant to face their own waiting, their unfulfilled hopes, their unresolved losses. The devourer will use these against you, try to trap you in them. So we need to be prepared to confront our deepest unresolved hopes, Lily summarized. Yes, Michael confirmed. And that is why finding Ethan Marshall is crucial. He has faced this battle for 50 years. He knows the devourer's tactics better than anyone. Then let's go, Savannah said decisively, reaching for the locket. Michael stopped her with a raised hand. First, you should know the full truth of what we attempt. His dark eyes moved from face to face around the table. The unmaking ritual has been performed only twice in recorded history. The first time, 300 years ago, it succeeded in freeing many waiters. But of the 5 who performed it, 3 became waiters themselves, trapped for decades until death finally released them. A heavy silence fell over the kitchen. And the second time? Lily asked quietly. 70 years ago, Michael replied. My grandfather was one of the participants. They attempted to free a group of children who had become waiters after being lost in a blizzard. The ritual failed completely. All 5 participants died within a year, under circumstances that my people consider unnatural. You're saying the devourer killed them? Logan asked. In a manner of speaking, Michael nodded. It drove them to despair, to self-destruction. Their hopes shattered, their spirits broken. Savannah swallowed hard. Why tell us this now? Are you trying to discourage us too? No, Michael said firmly. I tell you this because you deserve to make an informed choice. The path ahead is dangerous, perhaps fatally so. If any of you wish to step away, there would be no shame in it. Savannah looked at Logan and Lily, seeing the same determination in their faces that she felt in her heart. I'm in, she said simply. As am I, Lily affirmed. You know where I stand, Logan added. Michael nodded, a hint of pride in his expression. Then let us find Ethan Marshall. The journey to Ethan's cabin took them deeper into the forest than Savannah had yet ventured. The terrain grew rougher, the trails less defined. Michael led the way, moving with surprising agility through the tangled undergrowth. Logan followed, then Savannah, with Lily bringing up the rear. As they walked, Savannah noticed the forest changing around them. The trees grew older, more gnarled, their branches twisting in unnatural patterns. The light filtering through the canopy took on a greenish tinge, and the sounds of birds and insects gradually faded until they walked in eerie silence. We're passing near a waiting place, Michael explained when Savannah commented on the change. The devourer's influence alters the natural world around it. How many waiters are there? Savannah asked, keeping her voice low, as if afraid of being overheard. In these woods? Dozens, Michael replied. Some very old, dating back to the earliest European settlements. Others more recent, each trapped in their own moment of eternal hope. And in the world at large? Lily inquired. Michael's expression grew somber. Hundreds, perhaps thousands. The devourer is not unique to these forests. Entities like it exist wherever humans have lost loved ones, wherever hope persists beyond reason. The thought was chilling, that all across the world people might be trapped in endless waiting, feeding entities that thrived on their unfulfilled hope. How many ghost stories, how many legends of spectral figures seen in specific locations might actually be waiters? After several hours of difficult hiking, they reached a small valley nestled between 2 steep hills. A stream ran through its center, beside which stood a simple log cabin. Smoke rose from its chimney, the only sign that someone lived in this remote location. Michael stopped at the edge of the clearing. Let me approach first, he advised. Ethan is wary of visitors. The others waited while Michael walked alone to the cabin's door and knocked. After a long moment, the door opened slightly. They couldn't see who stood inside, but they watched as Michael engaged in what appeared to be an intense conversation. Finally, he turned and beckoned them forward. As they approached the cabin, the door opened fully, revealing a man who appeared to be in his 70s, though something in his bearing suggested he might be older. His white hair was cropped short, his beard neatly trimmed. He wore simple clothes, jeans, a flannel shirt, sturdy boots. But it was his eyes that caught Savannah's attention, piercing blue, alert, and filled with a sadness that seemed to have no bottom. "Ethan Marshall," Michael introduced him. "Ethan, these are the people I told you about. Logan Carter, Lily Morgan, and Savannah Reed." Ethan nodded to each of them, his gaze lingering on Savannah. "So, you're the one who freed Jacob Bennett," he said, his voice rough from disuse. "And now you wear his mother's locket." Savannah's hand went to the pouch around her neck. "How did you know?" A grim smile touched Ethan's lips. "I can feel it. After 50 years of resisting the devourer, I've become sensitive to its presence." He stepped back from the door. "Come in. We have much to discuss, and these woods have too many ears." The interior of the cabin was spare but comfortable. A fire burned in a stone hearth, warming the single large room that served as kitchen, living area, and bedroom combined. Books lined the walls and various tools hung from hooks. Everything was meticulously organized, giving the impression of a mind that valued order and control. Ethan gestured for them to sit at a rough-hewn table in the center of the room. "Michael tells me you want to perform the unmaking ritual," he said without preamble. "That you believe you can free the waiters." "We've already freed Jacob," Savannah pointed out. "We know it's possible." "One waiter," Ethan acknowledged. "A significant achievement, but not the same as challenging the devourer directly, as the ritual would do." "We need your help," Logan said. "The ritual requires 5 participants, each embodying a different countering element." Ethan's gaze moved from face to face. "And you believe I represent one of these elements?" "Acceptance," Michael said. "You have faced your loss without surrendering to false hope. You have accepted what cannot be changed." A shadow passed over Ethan's features. "You speak of my wife," he said quietly. "Of Margaret." "She is still a waiter," Michael confirmed. "Still standing by the river where she drowned 50 years ago. Yet you have never joined her, never become a waiter yourself, despite the devourer's constant attempts to turn you into one." "How?" Savannah asked, unable to contain her curiosity. "How have you resisted for so long?" Ethan was silent for a moment, his eyes fixed on the dancing flames in the hearth. "By accepting the truth," he finally said. "The complete, unbearable truth that Margaret is gone, that no amount of waiting will bring her back to me." "But her spirit remains," Lily said gently, "as a waiter." "That is not Margaret," Ethan replied, a flash of anger in his eyes. "It wears her face, her form, but my wife is gone. What stands by the river is a shell, a puppet controlled by the devourer." "The real Margaret did die that day," Michael agreed. "But something of her remains, enough that the devourer can use it to feed. It is that remnant we hope to free." Ethan's expression softened slightly. "I've tried," he admitted. "For decades I've searched for ways to release Margaret and the others from the devourer's hold. I've performed rituals, appeals, even threats. Nothing has worked." "This will be different," Logan assured him. "With 5 of us, embodying all the countering elements, we can perform the unmaking properly." Ethan looked skeptical. "And who embodies what in this grand plan of yours?" "Michael represents acceptance," Lily explained. "I embody release. Logan represents completion. and Savannah ... Movement, Savannah said, the word coming to her with sudden certainty. I represent movement. Michael nodded, as if he had expected this. Which leaves rebirth for you, Ethan. A bitter laugh escaped the older man. Rebirth? Me? I'm an old man who has spent half a century alone in the woods, fighting a battle I cannot win. There is no rebirth in me. There could be, Savannah said quietly. If we succeed, if we free the waiters, including Margaret, wouldn't that be a kind of rebirth? A new beginning, free from the shadow that has dominated your life? Ethan studied her, his expression unreadable. You're either very naive or very wise, he finally said. Perhaps both. Will you help us? Logan asked directly. Ethan rose from the table and moved to a chest in the corner of the cabin. He opened it and withdrew a small object wrapped in faded blue cloth. Returning to the table, he carefully unwrapped it, revealing a silver wedding band. Margaret's ring, he explained. The only piece of her I have left. The Devourer has tried to use it against me many times to create a connection like the one it has with you through the locket. Savannah touched her pouch instinctively. And you've resisted? At great cost, Ethan confirmed, his voice heavy with decades of struggle. But yes, I have resisted. He stared at the ring for a long moment, memories playing across his weathered face. Then, with a decisiveness that surprised them all, he closed his hand around it. I will help you, he said. Not because I believe we will succeed, but because after 50 years I am tired of merely resisting. If there is even a small chance of freeing Margaret, the real Margaret, whatever remains of her, then I owe it to her to try. Relief washed over the group. With Ethan's participation, they now had all 5 elements needed for the ritual. We should begin preparations immediately, Michael said. The ritual must be performed at a waiting place during the dark of the moon, 2 nights from now. Which waiting place? Logan asked. Michael looked to Ethan. It should be one with personal significance to at least one of us. The connection strengthens the ritual. Without hesitation, Ethan replied, the river, where Margaret waits. The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation. Michael taught them the intricate chants and movements required for the ritual, while Lily researched additional protective measures they could take. Logan secured the perimeter around Savannah's cabin, setting wards that Michael had shown him to keep the Devourer's influence at bay. Savannah spent hours with Ethan, listening to his stories of Margaret, of their life together before the tragedy, and of his decades-long battle against the entity that had claimed what remained of his wife. His voice, initially reluctant, grew more animated as he spoke, as if sharing these memories was awakening something long dormant within him. She loved the river, he told Savannah as they sat on her porch the evening before the ritual. We would picnic there every Sunday, rain or shine. She said the sound of the water reminded her of music her grandmother used to play. What happened? Savannah asked gently. The day she drowned? Ethan's eyes grew distant. A flash flood. We'd had heavy rains for days, but that morning dawned clear and beautiful. Margaret insisted we keep our Sunday tradition. His voice caught. I went to get something from the car. When I returned, the water had risen impossibly fast. She was already swept away, calling my name. Savannah placed her hand over his. I'm so sorry, Ethan. Her body was found 3 miles downstream, he continued, as if needing to speak the full truth. But by nightfall there were already whispers. People claiming they'd seen a woman standing by the river where Margaret had been taken, perfectly still, waiting. And you saw her too, Ethan nodded. 2 days later, she looked exactly like Margaret, wearing the same blue dress. But her eyes... He paused. They weren't hers. Something else looked out from behind them, something ancient and hungry. "The devourer," Savannah whispered. "Yes, it spoke to me using her voice, told me Margaret was waiting for me, that we could be together forever if I would just wait with her." Ethan's hand clenched into a fist. "I almost gave in, God help me. I wanted to." "What stopped you?" A sad smile touched his lips. Margaret herself. The real Margaret. In that moment I could hear her voice in my memory, telling me to live, to move forward, to not waste my life in pointless waiting. It was enough, just barely, to help me turn away. "And you've been fighting it ever since," Savannah said, understanding dawning. "Every day for 50 years, Ethan confirmed. "Some days are harder than others. The anniversaries, her birthday, our wedding day. The devourer knows when I'm most vulnerable and always intensifies its efforts then." As night fell, the others joined them on the porch. A somber mood settled over the group as they discussed final preparations for the ritual. "We should try to rest," Michael advised as the evening grew late. "Tomorrow will demand everything from us." But as the others went inside, Savannah remained on the porch, her thoughts too turbulent for sleep. The locket pulsed gently against her chest, its warmth neither threatening nor comforting, simply present, a reminder of what waited in the forest. She wasn't surprised when, hours later, the lullaby began to play once more, drifting from the tree line. But this time, she didn't follow it. Instead, she sat perfectly still, waiting. The melody shifted, changed, becoming more insistent. Still, Savannah didn't move. Finally, a figure emerged from the trees, not Jacob or Jessica, but a tall, broad-shouldered man with a neatly trimmed beard and familiar eyes. "Savvy," her father's voice called. "I've been looking everywhere for you." Savannah's heart contracted painfully. He looked so real, so exactly as she remembered him. For a moment, she almost believed it was truly him. "You're not my father," she said firmly, though her voice trembled. "He disappeared 5 years ago in the Amazon. He's gone." The figure approached the edge of the protective wards Logan had set. "Is that what they told you?" it asked, hurt evident in its voice. "Savvy, I was lost, but I found my way back. I've been searching for you." Tears filled Savannah's eyes. "Stop it," she whispered. "Don't use his face, his voice." "Why won't you believe it's me?" the apparition asked, reaching out a hand that stopped at an invisible barrier. "I've come so far to find you." "Because my father would never ask me to wait," Savannah replied, finding strength in the realization as she spoke. "He taught me to keep moving forward, to embrace life's changes. He wouldn't want me suspended in hope and grief." The figure's expression darkened, and for a brief moment its eyes flashed green. "You could be with him again," it said, its voice no longer quite her father's. "Just a step beyond the wards. Come wait with us." "No," Savannah said firmly, rising to her feet. "I choose to move forward, not to wait for what cannot return." The apparition hissed, its form beginning to distort, stretching and twisting into something inhuman. "You will regret this defiance," it snarled, its voice now completely different, ancient, cold, hungry. "Tomorrow night you will all feed me. Your hopes, your fears, your endless, delicious waiting. All mine." The locket around Savannah's neck burned hot enough to sear her skin. Visions flashed before her eyes. Her father, arms outstretched, calling her name. The waiters all around them, their faces contorting in pain and fear. The forest itself, writhing as if alive and in agony. She heard Lily cry out, saw Logan stagger as if struck. Michael's voice faltered for a moment before resuming the chant with greater intensity. And Ethan stood in the center of their circle, Margaret's ring held high, tears streaming down his face as he faced the distorted shadow of his wife. "I release you," he called out, his voice breaking. "I release myself. No more waiting, no more." The Margaret figure shrieked, a sound so full of rage and hunger that Savannah felt it like a physical blow. The waiters began to move, taking slow, synchronized steps toward their circle. "Don't break the circle," Michael shouted over the howling wind. "Whatever happens, maintain your position." The ritual reached its crescendo, their 5 voices joining in the final verses of the chant. The tokens at their feet began to glow with a silver light that spread outward, forming a dome of energy over their circle. The Devourer's shadow beat against this dome, tendrils lashing, seeking any weakness. The waiters pressed closer, their green eyes blazing, hands reaching. The Margaret figure at the center of the shadow wailed in a voice that was both the entity's ancient hunger and something more human, more desperate. "Now," Michael commanded. "Each of you, face your waiting. Acknowledge it, then release it." Savannah closed her eyes, focusing inward. She saw her father as she remembered him, laughing, vibrant, full of life and adventure. She felt the hope she had carried for 5 years, the belief that somehow, somewhere, he might still be alive. "I have waited for you," she admitted, speaking not to the apparition the Devourer had created, but to the memory of her real father. "I have clung to hope beyond reason, beyond sense." Tears streamed down her face, but her voice grew stronger. "But I release that waiting now. I release you, Dad. Whether you're truly gone or somehow still alive, I choose to move forward, to live fully, as you taught me to do." Around her, the others were doing the same, confronting their deepest, most persistent hopes, acknowledging their waiting, and consciously choosing to release it. Logan spoke of a brother lost at sea, whose return he had unconsciously awaited for decades. Lily addressed her lifetime of searching for Jacob, the obsession that had shaped her existence. Michael named each loved one he had lost, each grief he had carried, each hope that had lingered beyond its time. And Ethan spoke directly to Margaret, his voice clear despite his tears. "I have loved you for 70 years, he said. 50 of those years I have fought to keep that love pure, uncorrupted by the thing that holds you. But in doing so, I have remained frozen, unable to truly live, unable to truly die." He held the wedding ring higher. "I release us both from this half-existence. I release the waiting that has bound us. If something of you remains, Margaret, let it find peace. And if nothing remains but my memory of you, then let that memory live in movement, not in stasis." As he spoke the final words, the ring in his hand erupted in blinding silver light that shot upward, connecting with the dome of energy around them, and then expanding outward in a shockwave that swept across the forest. The Devourer's shadow contorted, its form compressing, stretching, breaking apart. It gave one final, deafening shriek, a sound of rage and hunger, and, underneath, something almost like fear. Then the wave of silver light washed over the waiters. One by one, their rigid postures softened. The green glow faded from their eyes, replaced by recognition, awareness, humanity returning. They looked around in confusion, in wonder, in dawning understanding. The Margaret figure was the last to change. As the silver light enveloped her, the shadow that had twisted her form melted away, leaving only a woman in a blue dress, her eyes clear and fully her own for the first time in 50 years. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice truly hers, You found a way." Ethan stepped forward, breaking the circle now that the ritual was complete. "Margaret," he breathed, reaching for her with trembling hands. She smiled, a smile of such love and gratitude that Savannah felt her heart contract. "You never gave up," Margaret said. "But now, my love, you can rest. We both can." As they watched, Margaret began to fade, becoming transparent. But unlike the frightening distortion of the waiters under the Devourer's control, this transformation was peaceful, natural, a gentle release. All around them, the other waiters were fading as well. Jacob's mother, Elizabeth, smiled as she dissolved into mist. Jessica Brooks, one hand cradling her stomach where her unborn child had been, nodded to Savannah before she too faded away. Dozens of souls, trapped for decades or centuries, finally finding the release that had been denied them. "Are they gone?" Savannah asked, her voice hushed. "Not gone," Michael replied. "Released, free to move on to whatever comes next." The Margaret figure was almost completely transparent now. She reached out one fading hand to touch Ethan's cheek. "Thank you," she whispered, "for fighting for me all these years, and thank you for finally letting me go." Ethan covered her hand with his own, though his fingers passed through hers. "I will always love you," he said. "But I understand now. Love doesn't mean endless waiting. It means honoring what we had by living fully, by moving forward." Margaret smiled once more. "Yes," she agreed. "Live, Ethan, for both of us." And then she was gone, along with all the other waiters. The forest around them returned to normal, the trees straightening, the wind dying down, the river receding to its proper banks. The unnatural darkness lifted, revealing a sky full of stars. The five stood in silence for a long moment, exhausted but triumphant. They had faced the Devourer, an entity as old as human hope itself, and they had won. Not by destroying it, for how could one destroy something so fundamentally tied to human nature, but by freeing its captives, by choosing movement over waiting, acceptance over endless hope. "It's not completely gone," Michael finally said, voicing what they all sensed, something that ancient cannot be destroyed so easily. "But we've weakened it," Logan added, "freed dozens of souls from its grip." "And we know it can be done," Lily said, her voice filled with wonder. "After all these years of research, of trying to understand, we know it's possible to free the waiters." Savannah touched the locket, which now hung cool and dormant against her skin. "What about this?" she asked. "Is it still dangerous?" Michael considered the question. "The Devourer's connection has been severed, at least temporarily. But I would keep it protected just in case. It may retain a trace of the entity's power." "I'll guard it," Savannah promised. "And if we ever sense the Devourer returning, rebuilding its strength—" "We'll be ready," Logan finished for her. As they gathered their belongings and prepared to leave the riverbank, Savannah noticed Ethan standing apart from the group, gazing out at the water where Margaret had stood for 50 years. She approached him cautiously. "Are you all right?" He turned to her, and she was surprised to see a smile on his weathered face. Small but genuine, the smile of a man who had carried an impossible burden for half a century and finally set it down. "For the first time in 50 years, he said quietly, "I think I might be